Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Killian, Coriander. We're about to talk about the classic They Live from 1988. How's it going?
Yeah,
Hey,
good.
I'm trying not to laugh because I just love that
I
sequence.
know.
And my favorite part of
Right?
all of that, all the dirty tricks they do, the one thing that Keith David, you dirty mother,
Yeah,
hitting below the belt is the one thing that he's like, oh, you dirty bastard.
yeah.
I know, man. I love that scene.
Oh,
That's
so
the
good,
best
One of the
so
one of the greatest fight scenes in history of cinema.
ever.
It's
Yes.
crazy. It's crazy. And
Yeah.
we'll be talking about some of the behind the scenes on that once we get started. But before we start proper, real quick, we're going to do a quick take on this movie. We'll make this brief. I'll start off. This movie is just amazing. John Carpenter, he just crafted such a really cool sci-fi horror action film that also had a lot of social commentary. And anybody that knows John Carpenter knows that he's always had an aversion to authority. And this was his rebuttal against consumerism and Reaganomics and yuppies and socialites and all that type of stuff. And this movie, it really hits home. It hit home back in '88 and it hits home today in 2021. So great job for him. This was also a movie that shot to number 1 when it first opened, so that was kind of cool too. But let's get a quick take from you guys before we start. We'll start with you, Killian. When you think of They Live, what comes to mind for you?
Man, just kind of one of the things you just said as far as John Carpenter and his outlook on authority. I mean,
Hmm.
he has
Yes.
made a career of making these iconic characters that buck the trend of and buck authority. And
Yes.
yeah, man, like this movie, I mean, I was a wrestling fan as a kid, and Roddy
Yes.
Piper was my favorite wrestler as a kid. He really was. And to see him in this movie, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then of course, it's John Carpenter, it's action,
Yep.
it's sci-fi, it's horror, and
Hmm.
yeah, it just touches on so much, and it's a lot of comedy too. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Coriander?
Yeah. I mean, like I always say, what can I say after that? So, both you guys, yeah, you nailed it. It's a great movie and I love it. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this before we start proper, this movie it really stands the test of time because of the way that it was done. As usual, John Carpenter using practical effects and kind of having a very lean script, and it all came to pass when this movie came out. It was successful, not as successful as I'm sure that they all wanted it to be, but successful enough. And I remember really enjoying it as a kid. So, and anyways, for you guys watching the replay, sit back, relax. We're going to be talking about They Live. All right, let's get down to it. So we'll start from the beginning of this story and talk a little bit about our favorite moments. Killian, I'll start with you. What do you got? I mean, this movie starts off and you'd never know where it was going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny, and you might understand where I'm kind of going with this. A lot of this movie kind of reminds me of the beginning of First Blood. You kind of have
Yes.
a
Yes.
drifter, from out of town, a good guy just
Mm-hmm.
looking for like some good honest work, and just
Mm-hmm.
trying to just be, and of course
Mm-hmm.
this one, it goes into some interesting places. But Roddy Piper, the way he plays the character in here is very, down to earth. He's not
Mm-hmm.
a loud guy. He doesn't like to draw a lot of attention to himself. He's just
Right.
there, just trying to live his best life and to make a life for himself. Find a job,
Right.
and yeah, and I love how the pacing of this movie is great, but it starts
Mm-hmm.
off very slow and it kind of eases you into the insanity that's going on below the surface that we can't see because we don't have the sunglasses on. So.
Right, absolutely. Well, and and also before I get to you, Coriander, Roddy Piper had done a lot of rest in peace, obviously, to Roddy Piper, but he had done a lot of interviews after this movie, and he talked about some of that was the hardest part for him to film. Showing him on the streets, basically being homeless. Because that was something he really went through in real life. He was homeless, living, wherever he could, trying to make ends meet before he became famous as a wrestler, especially in the WWF. But Coriander, just to throw it to you, once he meets Keith David and gets a job doing some construction and so forth, what were your thoughts on the film at that point and how those two had chemistry?
Yeah, I liked these two together. I mean, it starts out good, until he gets himself in trouble. But yeah, I mean, if that church wasn't across the street from where they were staying, and if he wasn't so like observant and kind of nosy, then maybe, he wouldn't have found stuff, and who knows how this movie would have turned out. But thank God he was, a little nosy, because, he ended up discovering some shit that got him in trouble, man.
Absolutely. He heard a lot of commotion in the church. And like you said, he was the type of guy that was very curious. And then he goes to find out that there weren't any people inside singing like he thought. It was a recording. And right there at that point, Roddy Piper, you can say what you want about his acting capability, but one thing's for certain, he had a lot of charisma. And a lot of the popular wrestlers of yesterday and also of today, the most popular wrestlers do have a natural charisma, something that draws the crowd or draws people to them. And Piper definitely showed that in this movie. There were little things that he did physically that just made you want to follow him. And as he goes into the church and finds out that it's kind of a front for something nefarious, that's when the movie starts to kind of kick into overdrive, and he tries to get Keith David in on it too. But Keith David is like, I don't want any part of this. I just want to work and get my money and live my life. What were you thinking at that point in the film, Killian? Because that's when things start to take a left turn.
I love Keith David, man. Look, it doesn't matter if he's in this movie, if he's in that movie Men at Work, if he's in The Thing. Keith David is a joy to watch because he is the perfect wingman, third guy, the dude who would just kind of call you on your BS every time and almost would be your antagonist, because he's just as smart as you, and more than likely he's just as physical as you, like in this movie. And it's just he plays that part of the audience that's just like, yeah, right. He literally plays that guy in the audience like, bull crap, I don't believe you, prove it to me. I mean, and just like in the Thing. Oh no, go ahead, Coriander. What were you saying?
Well, no, I was just gonna say how you said to prove it to him. It was like, damn, just put the friggin' glasses on instead of beating each other to a pulp.
No, I'm not going to put these glasses on. We're going to have a fight for 15 minutes, and it's going to be epic.
Yeah. Well, and what was interesting too about the fight? Originally, it was only supposed to be like a 20-something second fight, and Piper obviously did a lot of the choreography for it, and they were practicing and rehearsing for over 3 weeks in the backyard of Carpenter's production lot. And Carpenter liked what he was seeing, so he's like, yeah, go for it. We can make this kind of a little bit of a centerpiece between you guys as characters. And Keith David and Piper decided to punch for real, except for the headshots and groin shots, to really, make it more visceral. And Carpenter at one point said to Piper, he says, I think you should put a suplex in this too, right? And Roddy says, which one? Now, anyone that watches wrestling, and I know you know this too, Kill, I mean, there's a whole bunch of variations of suplexes. But anyways, long story short, John Carpenter was very happy, as well as Keith, David, and Piper, as far as how that scene played out, because it's like a 5 minute and 20 something second fight. It's ridiculously long, but it's awesome. And it's really kind of telling a little bit of a story between these two strong-willed guys, and it's amazing. It really, really is. But Coriander, I'll throw it to you. Once they kind of go through their ups and downs in their relationship, Piper then, who in the movie isn't given a name. He isn't given a name. He doesn't say his name, and he's never called by his name, but he is credited in the titles as Nada, which is a reference to the original short story, 8 o'clock in the morning. But once he meets Meg Foster's character, what were you thinking at that point? Because obviously, he's kind of on the run and he's using her to escape.
Yeah, it's a good thing he ran into her, because if he didn't, he would have been screwed, because she's the one who got him, he got into her car and she drove up, took him away from where the police were. And once she got to their place, though, I mean, she was kind of smart with how she acted, and because she ended up getting him out. So good for her.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the scene right before he met her, which of course, Kill, I know you love that scene, but that's where he has the famous bubblegum line, which was ad-libbed by Roddy Piper. That was actually a little ad-lib. He used to write down little phrases and stuff, to do for his promos and wrestling. And he had asked John Carpenter about using one, and Carpenter said, "Yeah, I think that one might work." What'd you think about this scene? It's so iconic when he goes into the bank.
Man, I love it. I mean, and just to hear that dialogue, it made me think of all the other badasses, whether it's Bruce Campbell, whether it's Kurt Russell. I mean, just any badass. But I will say one thing: as I was watching these scenes where they're going in there and they're clearly, the heroes are clearly taking out the bad guys that only they can tell are bad guys. It truly made me think, could this movie be made today? Because there's some problematic stuff in there of like a guy coming in and shooting human beings that look human to the rest of us, unless you have these glasses on. And I'm watching this, I'm like, and once again, that's where things, come into play of this was a product of that time, and we didn't really have some of the issues that we may be going through today, and things of that nature, and how some of the older movies, how they discuss racial issues or women get treated, so these are definitely products of their time. But I would be remiss if I didn't say some of that could be a little problematic. This guy's just shooting up a bank. just saying. But for what it is, it's amazing, and the dialogue is so badass. And I mean, I want those glasses, because you never know.
Didn't you? I want those. Man, I can remember getting.
You never know.
Like that. Well, I can remember getting a pair of glasses like that when I was a kid, and pretend. This was such a cool movie, man. I mean, it came out at the right time. It was. We talked about it in school. We watched it on VHS. I mean, it was really, really crazy. But anyways, So he's got the glasses where he can see that the world is totally different. You see subliminal messages like obey, conform, sleep,
reproduce,
all those types of things. Reproduce, marry and reproduce. So it's crazy to think that. Yeah. Like when you're looking into a magazine, and instead of seeing a thing talking about a product, it's saying, reproduce or whatever. And it's kind of scary, but once he is on the run and he meets Meg Foster, and she does, like Coriander was mentioning, she kind of outwits him. He's truly on the run at that point. And the aliens, the beings are kind of onto him, saying, hey, this guy can see, he's a problem, we got to get him. As we get to the finale, and Coriander, I'll throw it to you, especially that scene where him and Keith David go to the hideout and they have to shoot their way free with some really cool action and of course the twist that was to happen later on. What were you thinking about that as far as, you know, I know when I first watched it, I didn't know where this was going to go. They're on in a hideout trying to plan this big attack, and then they get raided. You know, what did you think of that, Coriander?
Well, it's a good thing that, you know, these people realize that these sunglasses are too noticeable and that they give them these like contacts. So that was pretty smart.
Yeah. Yes,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah, like when they were down there, honestly, you didn't know what was going to happen. You thought, okay, they're with people that, you know, they're going to gang up and hopefully kick some ass. But yeah, they ended up getting, like you said, raided, and people turn out to be not who they really are. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, they definitely had a traitor in their midst, and as they were running away, and I'll throw it to you in a second, Kill, but they were running away and basically were cornered in an alleyway, and they luckily had taken a watch that was confiscated from one of the aliens, and they didn't know how to work the watch because they knew that the watch could help teleport, you know, to some place. They didn't even know where, but they were being pursued by like, I don't know how many, like 8 or 9 guys with machine guns and so forth. And Keith David's character Frank says, we gotta just figure this out. You know, he pushes the button and all of a sudden this passageway, this doorway opens and they just jump in because they're just trying to escape. And then of course this is the finale where they basically land up in the lair of the aliens. Take me through that part, Kill, because I thought that was fascinating because you got to see kind of what's going on with these aliens and the behind the scenes, the politics and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they end up at this conference pretty much, or conference slash banquet, and they realize, man, how well organized and planned out and plotted this truly is, and how a lot of the humans are in their back pocket for, you know, for their own greed and wealth and promises of riches. And you know, and it's so brilliantly played by the facial expressions of Roddy Piper and Keith David. They don't even have to say any words, but they kind of look at each other like saying, we're fucked. Like this goes way deeper, you know, globally than we thought. You know, the powers that be, the congressmen and women, the presidents of different countries, the heads of corporations. I mean, we're so below the line here. Like, what are we gonna do here? And you know, you know, and then of course, you know, they're there, and there's one of the aliens. It's like, hey, you boys didn't dress for the occasion. He's like, oh, sorry, we're new. And I mean,
he was a sympathizer.
Yeah.
That was the worst part about it.
And no, it was just really interesting to just see how deep the rabbit hole goes, and you know, to see our characters, and you're watching, and I can only speak for me. I'm watching and I'm like, man, how are they going to get out of this? What are they going to do? You know? So,
exactly. And you know, it's funny too, because that scene, I mean, you truly don't know exactly how it's going to go. I mean, because we don't know how many of these aliens are there. You know, there's really nowhere that Roddy Piper and Keith David can go, you know, and they don't even know where they're at. They're just searching around. This is a huge, whatever it is, complex underground, whatever. It almost looks like it's like a missile silo or something like that with conference rooms and stuff, like a bunker underground. But it's crazy. But of course, you know, they talk to the alien sympathizer, and they get to a point where they're like, screw this, man, we gotta take some people out, people being aliens, I mean. And it's just funny because Piper realizes that, hey, the antenna is up on the roof. That's where we gotta go. So it gets into a 10-minute sequence of, like you always say, Kill, getting from point A to point B. But he also wants to find Holly, played by Meg Foster, which, of course, that was a big thing to come up. Coriander, what did you think about this part on out to the finale?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know really what was going to happen, because she ended up. Well, are we doing spoilers and stuff? I don't know.
Oh yeah. We're just talking about to the end. Yeah.
Because she ends up getting it right. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
She does get it,
you can never trust Meg Foster. She always betrays you. It's those beautiful eyes. It's those beautiful eyes of hers. Yeah, she always had those.
Yeah, she did.
Yes.
But it was just a bunch.
She betrays them.
Yeah, she does. Mm-hmm. And a whole bunch of shit goes down, and it was just it's a great ending to a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, and once they do find her, while they're battling all these guards and so forth, and they're thinking, okay, we found Holly, let's get to the antenna and let's defeat these aliens, because the antenna sends the signal out all across so that they can basically send those subliminal messages. And so they're going up the stairs, and that scene that I just showed with Holly basically betraying Frank, and all you hear is like a bang, and it cuts. And of course, Piper, he gets to the top of the roof, and he's planning to shoot the antenna to disable it, and he doesn't know, because he had gone ahead of those two, and he's basically like, are you there? Are you clear? Or something like that. Or he says something like, Frank, are you clear? And then, like you said, Kill, she has not only haunting eyes, but she has a very unique voice in all of her roles. She's like, I'm clear. And I'm like, oh no. First time I saw it, I was just like, get out of here, And she basically tells Piper, don't do it. But fortunately, he outwits her as well and does disable the antenna. So the ending of it is kind of funny too, like a little bit of dark comedy, because a lot of these aliens that are in our society, on commercials, on news broadcasts, all of a sudden they can be seen. They're not hidden to a human eye anymore. So it was kind of like it was actually very funny. It ends very funny. Kill, what did you think of the ending? Because it still sticks with me even to this day.
Unfortunately, both our heroes they die, but their deaths were not in vain. They were able to lift the veil and show the aliens for what they were, whether they're at the bar drinking or in the middle of having sex. Like, hey, baby, what's wrong?
Right.
I mean, I see you. And, Meg Foster, like she would have got the drop on me too, because those eyes, man, she gets me every time. Like I would have gotten killed too. But I think it ended the only way it actually could have ended, because the organization that the aliens had globally was just too much. And if somehow these two guys were able to do all this, save the day, get the girl, live happily ever, no, come on. So John Carpenter chose the only ending that actually would make sense. Is these guys sacrifice themselves and lift the veil. So to me, like, I don't mind that ending if it's the logical ending, and it is, to a great movie.
It really is. Yeah, it is. And hey, man, thank goodness it worked out that way as far as behind the scenes, because Vince McMahon from the WWF did not want Roddy Piper to do this movie for whatever reason. He said, I can find you another movie to do to get you the same pay rate and blah, blah, blah. And Roddy Piper, as well as many wrestlers, as you well know, Kill, have always talked about how Vince was very controlling, and the only idea he would accept is an idea that he came up with. So Piper left the WWF to do this movie, and obviously he later returned. But when he returned, he said he was twice as popular when he returned because of this movie. So I'm glad that he decided to do it, and they made a great movie, man. They really did. Yeah. It's a classic. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is.
But anyways, guys, let us know in the comment section, what do you think about They Live, a classic from John Carpenter, starring the late, great Roddy Piper. and Keith David and Meg Foster. Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace out.
Peace.
Chip, chip.